welcome. Thanks very much for coming. Oh, someone waved back. I like to see that from time to time. We are talking about how to avoid icebergs in Office 365, which is a bit of a weird analogy given we're talking about a cloud service, a very bad pun. But ultimately what we're trying to talk about is the bad decisions that organizations and individuals make in Office 365, and ultimately how you can avoid them, but also how you can, I guess, patch up the hull damage, to continue with that analogy, and ensure that you can kind of recover from it. So my name is Loryan and Strant. I've been working with Office 365 since back in the BPOS days. Does anybody remember BPOS? A few hands. We've been through the trenches together. Let's share a beer later. And I focus on roadmap, governance, and adoption. And I'm joined by this person here who has the same surname as me.
Hi everybody. So my name's Megan, and I'm an Office 365 change manager. I've been working with Office 365 for about 8 years, solely focused on adoption and change management. So I've been battling with IT departments for a number of years, trying to win them over, and being that person that goes on and on about the end user experience.
And battling with me.
Yeah, and so we actually enjoy presenting together because we work together. We come from very different backgrounds. We combine a lot of he goes on a lot about governance and all that detailed background tech stuff, and I'm obsessed with end users. So combined together, we hope to sort of pull the pieces of the puzzle together to deliver great work. So we have 20 minutes, which is fun. It's how effective and efficient and valuable can we be in 20 minutes? So the way we decided to pull together this content was to be very structured and repeated in the way we were talking about the icebergs. So what we decided to do was we thought of a number of major kind of issues in icebergs, and essentially we're just going to power through them. We've got about 2 minutes per iceberg, but we're going to use a consistent approach to talk about the problems, the impacts, and possible solutions. We will move through quickly, but we'll bring this up at the end to, I guess, give you a reminder of the topics, so you can then throw any questions at us if you like.
So legacy approaches to security. What a fun topic this is, because hey, we're putting stuff into the cloud, therefore it's insecure, because nothing is more secure than that server sitting in that rack in the kitchen that only I know the password to. So the challenge that I have is I come across a lot of IT people who are very much approaching Office 365 security with the same way that they approach security their entire careers. What I've seen is government agencies locking down SharePoint external sharing. Because how well does that work? Because hey, I can't share a file externally in OneDrive or SharePoint. What am I going to do? Email it, use Dropbox, use a USB stick, anything I want. We're going to work around the problem. So the challenge we have with users is that if we don't kind of figure out a new way of approaching security and actually ensuring that they can do their job, work the way they want, but ensure that we stay secure and compliant, we have a big problem, because users will just work around us, and we're inviting shadow IT as opposed to addressing it by subscribing to Office 365. So has anybody here heard the audit log in Office 365? Very few hands went up. The rest of you go look it up. Not right now, wait until we're done. But the audit log shows everything that happens in Office 365, or nearly everything. It will show you that you deleted an email, or that you moved it to another folder, or that you opened a file, or logged into Teams. So the thing is, I don't need to stop behaviors. I can observe behaviors, I can report on behaviors, and I can address behaviors. So that's how we've usually done security in the past, is the opposite way, where the perimeter has been the firewall, and I control everything behind it. But in the cloud world, there is no firewall. Everything's up there. It's all everywhere. So we have to look at how do we approach things. We have to look at things like information protection from Azure, Microsoft Information Protection, I think now. We have to look at ensuring we've got retention policies, data loss prevention, using a lot of the security features that we have built into the cloud that a lot of people have never had on premises. So the approach to IT and security has to change, because our users will work without us anyway. So we need to make sure that we're not just letting data just disappear into a black hole that we will never see again.
So competing platforms. Now, I'm not talking about shadow IT. I'm not talking about WhatsApp and Dropbox and all those things that are probably out there. I'm talking about making a decision to bring in a platform and not remove the old one. So in a customer example, we've been working with a research institute in Australia for about 8 months, and they've been using Zoom for quite a while. They brought in Microsoft Teams, and for various reasons, which I still don't quite agree with, they kept Zoom. As you can imagine, a lot of the end users are confused. It's inconsistent. They don't know, what are we supposed to be doing where? Do we do video calls in Teams or do we do them in Zoom? And the thing I get asked all the time are questions like that. Oh wait, I'm doing a CEO presentation versus we're just having a quick call. Which platform should I use? So making these decisions and not removing the legacy or the competing platform can create frustration. And then the other aspect is the adoption of the Microsoft suite can actually be impacted because they're still off on the side using these other platforms. So if you're going to bring in and enable the tools, you really need to do the assessment and understand what your people do and think about actually bringing in one tool and removing the other. Sounds really logical, but you'd be surprised with how many organizations make things more complicated by layering more and more tools and not having a clear path for their users.
In terms of IT, so we're IT people here. We make decisions. We think we know what users want, yeah? We think we know how the technology works best. So who here would say they know everything there is to know about Office 365? Ooh, daring. I wouldn't, and I have lived and breathed this technology since, as I said, BPOS, since before it was that, since it was basically Exchange Server 2007, SharePoint, and OCS in the cloud. So I actually the other week, was actually out at a client site, and they told me about how they create polls in Teams by chatting to the Forms bot. I was like, oh wow, I didn't even know you could do that. Now I possibly read it in a blog post at some point, but the thing is, I can't assume that I know everything, nor should I, because of that, assume that my decision is the right one for the organization. So what we tend to do is a lot of IT pros will see the implementation of Office 365 as a migration from on-prem to cloud. So we pick up Exchange, we move it to Exchange Online. We pick up SharePoint and vice versa. But the thing is, Office 365 is a lot more than that. So by us making the decisions on the client's behalf, the user's behalf, we make, to be honest, ill-informed decisions. We make decisions that make sense to us. So some of the things we see is a global finance organization, a recent customer that we worked with. What they thought is, oh, well, Teams makes sense to us. Let's just push it out to everybody. Has anyone done that before I talk too critically of it? So Teams does make sense, but there's a lot of things in there. But what ends up happening is they just use the chat feature, or they just use conversations in the channel. They're not adding bots, they're not doing video calls, or they just get frustrated and go back to old ways of working. So the problem by us making the decisions and saying, this makes sense to me, or I'm going to turn this feature off because of this, and simply enabling that setting or restricting that setting and making that decision without consulting the actual users, we have an issue with that. So one of the things that's really important with this is to actually sit down with a representative of the users, not a business stakeholder, get them in the conversation, but get the business people in the conversations, get the managers, get everybody down to the end user level, get a sampling of people in, show them what's available and let them make the decision, but then work with them to figure out when these tools will be available, or if at all. Because I do a lot of road mapping for organizations, and I actually don't show IT with the tools that they've got, I show the end users. They give me the feedback on what they want, I then build it into a roadmap that IT can actually implement. Because IT do not know every feature in Office 365. They just don't know how their users want to work. They've got their projects, their big digital transformation initiatives, but we make these decisions without considering, well, what's the actual end user impact on the ground level? How does it affect people? How does it frustrate them as well? So it's very important to have business, but end users, as well as change management. If you don't have anybody internally, find someone who can actually be an agent of change and help communicate these kind of things.
So the next one is using generic content and a generic approach, which the flip side and the positive to this is which tool when, which I'm sure we've all heard that statement. You like to use it within organizations as which tool do we use, or which tool we use when. So it's not just about tools being one size fits all. Office 365 is not one size fits all. You can't use generic training material, and you can't use generic kind of user scenarios for your organization. That's not to say you can't go to the learning pathways and leverage off the content, because the content is fantastic. It's more that you need kind of that layer over the top to help your users understand the context for them. So you can tell them to go to the learning pathways site. I feel like I need a sign. And watch the OneDrive videos and watch the Teams videos. But then the additional step is to have maybe a day in the life or some scenarios or content that is targeted to them. I'm a really, really big advocate of really strong campaigns, and sometimes a much stronger campaign with scenarios can be much more effective than a training session. So it's really important to understand the users, as Loryan said, but then take it that step further, and when you roll out a single tool, is to tailor it to the different user groups, understand how they work, and talk to them differently. So it's not just a one-size-fits-all, and it's not just about the tool, it's about the approach to the tool across the organisation. Now, these two icebergs are actually really close, so I'm trying not to trip myself up, because they kind of both produce the same impact. They both get people confused, they both create inconsistency. But what I'm talking about here is having all applications enabled. I'm not saying don't. I'm not saying you have to have control and you have to have them really specifically turned off or on. It's more about organisations who go bang and just turn everything on and think everyone will be fine. Some organisations that I've spoken to will say, you know what, we've got the licenses, we're paying for it, get it out there, get the usage, get our people in there. That's often coupled with people can self-learn. Those two things combined make my life very difficult as a change manager. It's kind of like a rapid burnout. If you have basically an organisation where everything's coming at you rapidly and then you're told to go learn yourself to understand it, as you can imagine, it creates a lot of anxiety, it's overwhelming, and people don't know what to do. So going back to the previous iceberg, the way it relates is that context. So sure, turn it all on, maybe stage it a little, but the context is important and the approach. If you enable everything and you give them this big bucket of learning content, what you might find is you have different pockets of the business that use different tools. One thing I find really difficult and frustrating is when I have to communicate in one way to marketing and then the other way to finance. Because maybe I'm doing a project with finance that's planner, but then maybe marketing are using some other tool. Okay? So part of having it all turned on, you've got to be really cautious about the inconsistency across the company, how that impacts business units that work together, and also just your communication and sort of campaign element of getting everyone on the same page, a consistent way of working, and having that element of kind of approach that's consistent, that makes people kind of feel like they know what's going on.
So onto one of my favourite topics, governance. Who here thinks they have their handle on governance? Notice that I'm not putting my hand up either, because governance is ever evolving. And if you look at things like Microsoft Teams, governance often refers to basically provisioning and maybe some settings around Teams. But Teams isn't just a platform on its own. Teams sits on top of something else, something called Office 365, which has a lot of apps and services underneath it. Each of those have their own settings, their own requirements, security, compliance, those kind of things. Whoops, I went too fast. So the challenge that we have with a lack of governance is around Office 365 groups, teams, provisioning, settings, all these kind of things, is it turns into the Wild West. Now, who's brave enough to put their hand up and say, my Office 365 groups or teams is just unmanageable, there's too many, help please? Anyone? Thank you for being brave. I think most of you are actually in the same boat, because I've seen very few customers that actually have it controlled unless they flat out turn the self-service off. So a real good example that is my kind of golden goose, because this customer keeps giving, is an organisation of, and I won't give specifics, of less than 10,000 people, multinational, a particular industry. They had something like, let's just say they had more than one team per user when we first started working with them. It's a little bit excessive, isn't it? And what were those teams for? Well, because basically I wanted to share a file with Megan and with Ali, so what would I do? I guess I'd create a team. And so I'd then have all these teams that never expired. I'd have all these teams that only ever had one channel called General. I had all these teams where there was no conversation, because what would then happen from a user perspective is Megan would look at this and go, oh, another team? My rail is just full of so many teams, it's all over the place. She would take the file out of the team, stick it into her OneDrive, and then share it back with me. Yay, 2 copies of that file. Yay, conversations that aren't happening. I have organisations that I work with that have hundreds of groups. I was at a university in Australia specifically, had about 500 or 600 groups created before IT even knew what groups were back in 2014. I'm seeing this even worse with Teams, where people just go and create teams. I've seen one organisation where they hid the new SharePoint site creation button because because they thought, we don't want people creating SharePoint sites. We're IT, we control SharePoint. But everyone could create teams, which creates a SharePoint site with the group. And what people also did to work around it, when they just wanted a SharePoint site, they went into Yammer and created a group. And what's great about that is that group is kind of broken now, because I can never teamify that group. I can never connect a team to it. So what they would end up with is someone that would then say, well, I've got this SharePoint site, but now I want teams, so I'll create a team. Awesome. We've got 2 teams, possibly similar names. What fun confusion is this? So this is the challenge we have. So governance is around the entire Office 365 platform, not just around teams. Teams is almost like the last mile when you're applying governance around life cycle, service configuration, everything. I've also seen organizations that have SharePoint external sharing turned off because cool, we want to control that. But owners of teams are allowed to invite guests, all right? But when a guest comes into that team, because SharePoint external sharing is turned off, they can't access the files. So this is a really useful tool we've now got. We've got a crippled team. So this is the thing, we have to look at the entire platform and work through it instead of just saying, I've got it and I'm going to control creation to it.
So...
Oh, hang on.
No.
So I'll keep talking. This is what happens when you modify the flow like the night before. Kind of building on that topic is digital wastage. Anybody got any ideas of what digital wastage would be? You look at like some of the vendors here that sell hard drives and cloud storage and backup, and they talk about how much extra data we add every year, how many petabytes or whatever it's up to now, exabytes. Cool. Is that a good thing to just keep adding storage, so it can handle more files? No, because you know what? I probably don't need that file from 2005. I probably don't need that file that has 8 characters and a 3-letter extension because it's from Windows 3.1 days, but they're out there. So what we see is a lot of organizations don't clean up after themselves. They don't actually have file expiration policies or retention policies that say, after X amount of time, delete. What we see is organizations that do lift and shift when they move to teams. Well, cool, you had a file share, we'll just dump it into teams. Sure, there's a lot of rubbish in there. So one of the organizations I worked with, and it was a council, so a state government agency, so no offense to anybody, but what I see, and I do a lot of work with government, is they're not really keen about, going through and managing their content and cleaning things up. But what the council actually decided to do is basically said, before you get to teams, you spend Friday afternoon, order some pizzas in, drinks, whatever you want, you sit in a meeting room and you go through every single file in your drive before we migrate it. Because the reality is we could automate some of this stuff and say, if it's over X, then don't bring it. But what they did is they basically sorted and categorized, kind of like going through a filing cabinet. And they brought across what was relevant and they brought it into a new structure in the team as opposed to just going, great, here's the old stuff, it's just over here now. So we need to look at that digital wastage in terms of files we're bringing across, teams that are not expiring or SharePoint sites, but also guests in SharePoint, guests in Office 365. So you've invited somebody in to a team, great, you're working with them, the project's finished, you delete the team. Does anybody go in and delete the guest? Most people don't. The guest is still in your Azure Active Directory. The guest can still use Teams and find people and chat with them and call them. It's a little bit of a security risk. So it's very important to remove that, but also things like external sharing. It's important to kind of time bomb this stuff and say, right, this served its purpose, we're now pulling it back.
Okay, so the final iceberg is lack of ongoing training. Now, whenever I mention repeat or ongoing training, I feel like everyone sees dollar signs. Like I'm that person who's advocating for train them all the time and run all these sessions. What I actually mean is short, sharp snippets and reinforcing. So earlier in the year, we ran a Teams proof of concept for an organization, and we had team captains and an area of the organization in Microsoft Teams for about 3 months. And I think the best piece of feedback that I received was, you ran a training session at the start, and they really wanted to see it 6 weeks in. You can't expect your people to go to a 1-hour session, walk away, and remember everything. Maybe they'll remember 10% or 40%. I'm sure there's an official stat somewhere. But what I want you to think about is ongoing with Office 365 is think about the things that are harder in particular and repeat content over periods of time to help reinforce it. The thing that I go on about, or I find that organizations need, people knowing how to apply rules to links for sharing. I feel like that's the biggest fall down across every company that we work with. So we spend a lot of time teaching people how to understand further, how to share documents, how to apply rules, and how to collaborate together. So when you get your people, whether it's in teams, whether they're moving into OneDrive or whatever's happening, think about rolling out the product, and at later stages, picking the behaviours you want to reinforce, whether it's posting tips or running sessions, reinforce that content. What also comes into play with that, though, is what's coming down the pipe. So the enhancements with Office 365. Have a think about, how does your organisation manage new features? How do you have a look at whether something could be a quick email, whether someone might notice the change, or whether it actually is something you need to control, train, and get people to understand. So I actually don't think it's possible moving forward to not ever retrain your staff, because the tools are changing all the time. So you need to think about how you can actually absorb those changes and be very adaptive to it, and help your people be adaptive as well. So summary points. Firstly, well, this is probably pretty obvious, but one of the ways to avoid icebergs is to plan. But just think about it at the end of the day. Think about who your people are, what you're trying to achieve, and really plan for the usage and the product.
Also, Office 365 changes really rapidly. As Megan was saying, new features come along. In the early days of Office 365, new features came along, we were promised once a quarter. Then it started changing. And I wouldn't even say it's weekly, I'd say it's almost daily. I mean, yesterday we had a fire hose of new features that are actually rolling out right now. So we have to plan for the fact that our approach may change later. We have to also factor that what we know now may change, because hey, private channels. I talked about Teams governance before. Now add private channels as a layer of governance to that. We talked, yesterday they announced SharePoint Hub Site Association and Hub Site permissions and all these other things. We didn't have that before. That changes how we approach. So we have to plan for the fact that this may change. We have to look at the roadmap and keep abreast of what's happening. And the last one is, do not think you know everything. I would love to meet an IT person who tells me they know everything about Office 365. And I will question them. Because you know what? I'm also happy for people to question me, because I do not attest to knowing everything about it. I learn things from my wife. Sorry, I didn't mean that to say I'm so patronizing. That's going to hurt later. No, but there are things that she does that I don't have a need to, and she'll say, hey, there's this cool feature, and I'll go, oh, I didn't know that, fantastic, and vice versa. So we can't assume that we know everything from an infrastructure perspective, a security perspective, because new features are added all the time. So we can't approach the same ways of Office 365 deployment that we have before, especially with Teams. That thing continues going. So we are slightly over time, but our slides will be available at the end. If there's any questions, come along at the back. Those are our contact details. Feel free to tweet us or actually send us an email.
Or even just start a conversation on Twitter about any of the icebergs if you want to ask any questions.
Or you can Teams Federated chat us.
That too.
That I'd like to see.
Thank you.
So thank you, everyone.